Alright, iPad hardware team, guess what? You get to redesign our best-selling iPad this year for the first time since its entire existence. Whoa, really? That's great! Okay, there's been so many things we wanted to add to the budget iPad. I hope you're ready for this one. Let's do this thing. Alright, first off, we're adopting USB-C. Alright, killing off the lightning port. No iPads will have that anymore. That's great. Secondly, we're gonna support the Apple Pencil 2. Whoa, that's awesome. That's great. Okay, that's the best stylus. Get rid of that Apple Pencil 1. And we're gonna keep the home button. Whoa, and we're gonna keep the home... You were the only one who was still rocking the home button. I'm not finished yet. And we're gonna add a camera bump. Well, okay, you know what? Are you sure I should be writing these down? I think that you might want to go back to the drawing board on this one a little bit. And we're gonna work with the same magic keyboards that work on the iPad Air and iPad Pros. Oh, okay. Smart connector symmetry across the lineup. I guess that's a good thing, but specifically the keyboard cases that cost $300 instead of $200. Okay, you know what? I think we need to talk about the future of your time at this company. This is not really making sense for the budget iPad. You really want this whole device to cost like $300 and then the keyboard and the Apple Pencil to cost $500? But it's still gonna come with a fast charger, so that makes it epic. Okay, like, we've already established that with iPadOS 16, we're gonna have lots of features that are only available on the Air and the Pro, you know, like with Stage Manager and external monitor support and all that text scaling and stuff. So if you're doing a lower end iPad, I feel like it's okay for the design to be closer to that of the iPad Air 5. That sounds like a good idea, but Tim Cook said it would sell way too well, so we had to make it intentionally ugly and off-putting. I freaking knew it. Tim! Come on! I just wanted a laminated display. Let's begin. Essentially, My Smart Price unveiled a leaked schematic of the iPad 10th generation this morning, and there's a lot of good news to talk about, of course. So, from the schematic, we can see Apple adopting a more squared-off edge design, so we'd finally have some consistency across the iPad lineup with the chassis and the ports, USB-C coming to this iPad, Apple Pencil 2 connectivity, and yeah, it's supposed to be a 10.5-inch display, so a little bit bigger than iPad 9, and that will likely allow it to use the same keyboard accessories as the iPad Air 4, iPad Air 5, and the 11-inch iPad Pro even, which are expensive keyboard accessories, but as much as this update sounds like a lot of things are changing with the iPad 10, I feel like it actually allows Apple to simplify their manufacturing line a lot, because once this iPad comes out, you're basically good to just axe the Apple Pencil 1, which has been around way too long. When that came out in 2015, I would not have expected that to be sold for $100 in 2022. Like, it's time for that thing to go, and that's what I'm excited about with this iPad 10 design, and I'm always happy and I'll always applaud any day we get a product that replaces a lightning port with a USB-C port. That's a super win in my book, especially with how many other iPads are already rocking USB-C at this point. It just makes sense to keep that consistent across the line, only for Apple to complicate it later in the year when they likely add MagSafe 3 to the iPad Pros, and now we'll have some other charge method that ships with those iPads. But anyway, the camera bump feels a little bit weird, and I guess that's why I'm kind of inclined to believe this report. Sometimes it's just a gut feeling. It's not always based on facts or logic, but the fact that this iPad doesn't seem to be like catering towards my dream scenario where they just make an iPad Air with a bit thicker bezels and a little bit worse of a CPU, that's kind of what I was hoping the iPad 10th gen would be, but the fact that this leaked schematic is showcasing it still having a home button and still having a forehead and chin is just kind of, you know, a cold splash of water in my face of like, Drew, an iPad Air that was priced around $499 or even $399 would sell way too well. They have to make it intentionally ugly to not cannibalize the rest of the iPad sales. So I didn't want that to be the case, but this leaked report makes me feel like that's more likely to be the case. Although I am kind of confused by the size of this camera bump. I don't know why it has to be iPhone 10-esque in its size. Like, why can't the camera bump be in line with what the iPad Air camera bump is? It doesn't have to be this big lifted thing. I guess overall the thinness of this iPad may have improved, so it may be the thinnest budget iPad of all time, and because they want the camera to still be pretty good, it's gotta protrude now. But having no camera bump on the budget iPads was honestly something I kind of appreciated about that design, and that's saying something because there was very little things I appreciated about that design. No laminated display, dated chassis, still lightning ports, still Apple Pencil 1, still 60 hertz, still basic webcam and everything. At least it got center stage, that was nice, but I wouldn't have minded if they compromised on the camera on the iPad 10th gen and just kept it flush on the back. I've just never been able to see, you know, a squared off edge iPad with no camera bump. Ever since 2018 with the iPad Pros, they've always had to have a camera bump when they make them that thin. Maybe it's just not possible, but I think even if it was a 1080p camera on the back, not that many people would care because it's a budget iPad at the end of the day. But given the iPhone SE has got some price increases this year, and that's supposed to be the budget iPhone, I absolutely expect with all of this redesigns being applied to the iPad 10th gen, there will likely be some price increases. Given they're still keeping the home button though, and not really changing much of the front design, I probably wouldn't expect it to go too high. I think $399 sounds about right. Apple likes their $29 increments, so maybe it'll be a $429 iPad. That way it's still under the price of the iPad mini, which is traditionally where the budget iPad has sat. But ironically, as affordable as this iPad may be, and its accessory support will be awesome, it's kind of funny that the stylus you get with this iPad is going to be $130. And if you want a keyboard case, that's going to be like at least $200, maybe $300 if you want the trackpad support. And this is also rumored to get 5G support at checkout, which, please people, just use your frickin' hotspots. But maybe we should rethink our logic in calling this thing the budget iPad, because once you start accompanying it with all of these other accessories, this could easily be a $500, $600 purchase. But I guess if you're just looking for a basic laptop hybrid 2-in-1, you know, you want mouse support, you want keyboard support, and this is rumored to get the A14 chip, so if you're treating it kind of like a Chromebook and there's not too many pro workflows you're looking for, and it's just, I want to browse the web, I want to watch some videos, I want to take some FaceTime calls, it will have center stage, which is pretty great. I guess the fact that you would be able to get a 2-in-1 hybrid from Apple for around $500 or $600, that's a pretty dang good deal. I mean, if you want the keyboard case with the iPad Air 5 or even Air 4, that's still going to be more like a $700, $800 purchase after taxes and accessories and everything. So I still see this being Apple's best-selling iPad, but I'm just a little bit disappointed that the home button, especially a physical home button, is still sticking around for another year, especially when Apple's been like slowly weaving it out ever since 2017. It's going to be like 6 years after the iPhone 10 killed the home button, and it's still sitting around, you know, still being a little Touch ID sensor. But I've heard some people mention that it could be for accessibility reasons. Some people really need a home button, or really prefer it at least. And I just did not expect Apple to apply this whole squared off edge design and keep the forehead and chin. My thought process was, if you're changing that whole chassis from the ground up, it's probably just not that much more expensive to update the display to have one size bezel all the way around. Even if it is a little thick, it would just be a bit more symmetrical with the rest of the iPad line. But my guess is this is not a budgetary choice. It is literally just a product lineup choice. They don't want to cannibalize iPad Air sales. And even though the 10th gen iPad is not rumored to get an M1 chip or anything, we shouldn't put it past Apple. They love to slap the M1 chip in things. And that means that the A14 chip won't have all of these stage manager or external monitor support features that we talked about with iPadOS 16. Even then, it's kind of a looks battle. They just want the affordable iPad to look a little bit ugly so that the iPad Air 5 still feels like a decent deal because you're getting a more modern design. But how do you guys feel about this leaked schematic? Do you think it's real, or do you think my smart price got some way fake leak or anything? The part about having quad speakers definitely sounds wrong. I could see that being lost in translation. I wouldn't be surprised if it had stereo speakers in landscape mode, but quad speakers is what iPad Pros have, whereas stereo and landscape is what the iPad Air and iPad Mini have, which is more in line with what a budget iPad we should expect. But all of your thoughts and predictions, feel free to let me know down below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I'll see you in the next one.